Go look at all your people's social media fields, and don't do it like a corporation where you're trying to police them. That's ridiculous. Go look at them and see if it actually says what they do. And if it doesn't, that's a reflection of you. I think that's where dealers have really missed a gap. Is they go, I want technology to make it easier for my job rather than what do I make it better for my experience? Or what makes the experience better for the consumer first? Not saying that it doesn't need to be easier, but consumers have to come first.
Welcome to Driven Loyalty, the podcast with proven strategies and expert insights tailored for automotive professionals looking to maximize retention, enhance customer experience, and drive sustainable growth. Here's your host, Jason Harris.
Hey, what's going on, Podcast Nation? It is Jason Harris here, and thank you for joining me on another episode of Driven Loyalty, where I get to talk to, well, anybody and everybody I want to talk about when it comes to creating loyal customers at our dealerships. And I am excited about this series. It's been an absolute fun series. Loyalty doesn't happen just because you executed a sale. Loyalty happens when you're intentional, and I have a great guest today, and we are going to get into it. But hey, we can't make cool content like this without our sponsors, and here's a quick message from our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by Podium. So here's a question for you. What would it mean for your dealership if you had one more employee who worked 24/7, never took a break, and was focused solely on turning every lead into a yes, even the after-hour ones, into test drives, a sale, and ultimately more revenue? Well, let's meet Jerry, Podium's brand new AI BDC. Jerry is a lead conversation machine, ready to jump on every lead that comes in instantly. He can answer questions, keep those leads engaged, and even schedule test drives, all without any direct human supervision. And here's the best part. With a seamless handoff to your sales team, your customers will never even know they were interacting with an AI. If you're curious about how Podium's AI BDC can help you move more cars, check it out at podium.com/SWJ. That's for Strategy with Jason. That's podium.com/SWJ, or just hit the link in the show notes below. All right, guys, I'm back. Today I have the one, the only, the probably one of the best dressed men I know. All right, except today he's wearing just a t-shirt, but it's okay. I have Darrell Steed with me. Darrell, what's up, buddy? How you doing?
What's going on? Yeah, I left all the what do you call it? Dinner attire for another time.
Dinner attire. Okay.
I appreciate you having me on, and loyalty. I mean, that is something that I'm passionate about. Quite a few things in the industry, but this is one that I think is the core of it, right? Like, there's a few things that initiate the big conversation of how you execute results, right? And that's generally speaking, but it really does come down to something. And why I find it interesting with loyalty is the old school of it, right? The word of mouth, the loyalty is like, when you do that right and you're intentional and you say, we're selling out to that, everything else is kind of like a waterfall. It just kind of flows from there. When you say we hope to do it or we kind of do it, well, then that's what your results are too. So I think this will be a very interesting conversation.
Well, it's going to be interesting because, we're also two old car dogs that are a little salty this week. So just a heads up to all the listeners. Me and Darrell are a little salty, so deal with it. No, in a good way. Here's the reason why guys like me and Darrell get a little salty. We love this business. We love we have committed our lives, all right, to this industry, and we love to see this industry win. And maybe we get a little salty when we feel like the industry is just not doing what it should be doing. And Darrell, you couldn't be more right, man. I mean, loyalty, when you're intentional about creating loyalty, man, everything else really starts to kind of flow with. Because guys, think about this. What does loyalty really mean? What do you get when you get a loyal customer? You get trust. All right, you get trust in your service department. You get trust when they come back and you're trading in the vehicle. Like, there's a trust factor to it, right? So our intent, I'm with you. I think, Darrell, we both know we have seen amazing operators in this industry, and we know that the best operators out there have some of the most loyal customers, and there is a good reason for that. But Darrell, there was a specific topic that you kind of wanted to jam about today, and I love this. All right, inconsistent customer experience across the departments. It's that inconsistency that makes it very difficult to create the loyalty. But I'd love to kind of get your thoughts on why you chose that specific topic.
Well, so interesting enough, I mean, I deal with, and I am passionate about the business, and I love it. For the first time I got into it, I thought it was probably the most lunacy thing I'd ever seen. And then I was like, wow, this is the craziest, funnest thing I've ever done too. And as years went on, and I really wanted to master it, because that's just how I was built, is when I'm going to do something, I want to be the best at it or understand the most of it. And so when it came to acquisitioning used cars, for whatever particular reason, I just got it. It just was one of those things that, like, when I saw it, I got it. I got successful at it, got better than almost everybody else in the country. But on the consistency side, I mean, I could talk about acquisition we could run this podcast for 24 hours and have plenty of subjects. But when you look at the business, it's everything. We always do an acquisition. If we gave 20 book sheets out and gave them to 20 used car managers, we get 20 different offers, because there's no methodology, there's no tool, there's no nothing. But when you look at your sales department, I could do that with your salespeople. I could do that with your service people. I could do that with your managers. There's no consistency to how you deploy or execute anything, which, if you have no consistency, you don't have a process. If you have no process, then how do you have loyalty? And I think it's because the moment we demand consistency, like that, once we demand it, you have to measure it. And I can't tell you how many owners, GMs, directors, whatever top level in the store there is, don't want to do their job. They don't want to have to manage it. They're like, well, I'm hoping I hire people that can just do their job. Well, until you demand it, they don't know what their job really is. And so to get consistency, you have to demand it. Like, we are going to do this every single time. There is no gray area. Everything's black and white until it's not. And once you do that, then loyalty is one of those things you make black and white, and consistency is black and white. And then all of a sudden customers go like this. I now know, and even if I don't like you as a person, I can then come to this store and know that the consistency, like, my loyalty is that I know what I'm going to get, whether I like the person. Of course. I trust the store to what I'm going to get every single time, no matter who the person is. And I think that's what a lot of stores are missing.
You know, just to add on that, because I'm going to tell you, one of my favorite steakhouses. All right. It's a Canadian chain. So if we have some Canadian listeners out there, they're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. But the steakhouse is called The Cake. They're all over the place. All right. Are they the most fanciest or top end steakhouse? No, they're not. All right. They're kind of, let's say, in the middle, right? Let's say just above an Outback and below a Ruth's Chris, somewhere in there. Right. But what I will say is that the consistency in the experience, all right, has made me a loyal customer, in the sense that it doesn't matter which location I go to or what part of the country. I could be on the east side, I could be on the west coast, I could be in the middle of nowhere. All right, I mean, literally in the middle of nowhere, and I will go in there. I will order a bone-in ribeye, medium rare. All right, Chicago style, and it will be literally executed the exact way, no matter the location that I'm at. So it was that consistency in the experience that has created a loyalty in me that I don't even question it. If that's what I'm looking for, if that's what I'm feeling, peckish for that night, that's just where I go. I'm sure you have some examples of that too, don't you?
Yeah, and well, it's funny you say that, because I know people listen and say, well, Darrell, I've heard you say plenty of times that we should customize a process. And I'm like, okay, here we go. Let's not try to be so literal as, yes, you want to have, like, if I'm dealing with sales, you want to have some customization of the conversation.
Sure.
Right? Like, yeah, you want to tailor it to them. But your process, we'll call it your, like, core 5 or whatever it is, that should not change based on what the weather is outside or what we're doing. And loyalty, and consumer experience, and that's what I founded my consulting agency off of, which makes me arguably the best, but when it comes to execution, it's not close. The best. And acquisition it's about the consumer first. And when you realize and you take that 30,000 foot view and you challenge yourself to, if you were a consumer, would you engage? Would you answer these questions? Would you, if there's even a hesitation, it's a no. And you have to really think about, like, what are all the customers' fears? What do all the customers know about the auto industry? What are all these things? And then you have to go so far the other side opposite so that you don't present any of these, because when they don't have the hassles, the mistrust, all the other things, like then they want to go there and they'll pay more. We've already proven that. They've been talking about this for God, what is it, 2025 now? So at least 25 years.
2 decades.
People will pay more money if they enjoy the experience or trust where they're going. Like that's the one thing they pay up for. And if you don't believe me, for those of you on the West Coast or Midwest, go to a Nordstrom, not a Nordstrom Rack, go to a Nordstrom. You'll buy the same tie at Mervyn's as you at Nordstrom, and you will pay $50 more for that tie. And you will pay it ear to ear smile, because when you walk in, they will make you feel like you are a millionaire.
So let's put that down, because I think it's where you're going with this is the same place I kind of go with cake. Like, what's the first point? Like, what are people most afraid of? Like, what makes a bad experience? And Darrell, we've talked about this before. It's the make and break right out of the gate is your people. Okay.
Yes.
You know, just to exactly what you just said about Nordstrom, right? I'm going to spend 50 more bucks. All right. But the people, well worth it. I'm going to tell you the same thing. I go to the keg. All right. Their training must be incredibly top notch. All right. I get eye contact. All right. It doesn't matter how busy they are. The place could be slammed. People back to back. All right. And someone's going to make eye contact and be very clear about, how long the wait is, or what the meal is, or what the specials are that day. Right? There is a consistency in the people. So here's my first question, because I think we both agree with this, right? Find the people that care about the job should be the objective. My question to you is how?
So it's a great question. So first, and I know I talked to you about this, about finding people that care. Now, I want to elaborate just a little bit on that, because I don't want to go down the rabbit hole, but they don't have to care.
Okay.
Right? They don't have to. When you find them, most times, and I tell people all the time, think about a movie. Find any movie in history that paints the auto industry out to being a trustworthy component of business. Exactly. You're not going to find one. Good luck. They're all hilarious, but they don't paint us out well. So when you know that is, most people you hire may not care. They don't know or whatever else. But do you develop them to want to care? Do you give them the confidence? Like the steakhouse you're talking about. If I was, and I'll relate this back to my military experience. In the military, do you think they just put a gun in a 17-year-old's hand and say point and shoot?
I hope not.
I would hope not. Oddly enough, in basic training, that's exactly what they do. They say shoot these targets, but then they train you, right? And you get more familiar with it. And if you're in one of these specialty fields that go to the front lines, you get more and more training.
Of course.
So like when you say you're at the steakhouse, now they make eye contact, they do this. I'm curious, right? When you see things like that, how militant or how regimented is their training to where you get the person to either execute it by fear, right? Like you do this or else, or you give them the training of, you get them so confident to where when now you take someone who maybe is meek or shy, and now they know they can talk to you eye to eye and they're not intimidated. You've given them a level of confidence to where they care because they see what happens when it unfolds. But when we don't train and develop our people, or we don't put the foundation into where our people can feel celebrated or needed or part of the solution, why would they care? Why would I care about you if you don't show the same in return for me of like my welfare, my future, and elevating me, making me better? If you're just like, you're a number and we pay you, so be happy we give you a paycheck, then I'm working for a paycheck. I don't give an absolute flying banana about you, right? So that's the challenge to finding the right people is, if you're going to get green peas, right, or new people with no experience, I'm all for it. Actually, I prefer it, right? No bad habits. If you're going to spend the time to get them confident and train them. If not, you have to ask people more than what they want to make. You have to show them that you're more than just a job, right? There's a job, there's a career. People care about careers. They look for a new job.
Well, we have to show them that the experience that they provide, regardless, to your point, right? Regardless of what they're doing, regardless if they're slinging steaks or ties at Nordstrom, right? Like, you don't necessarily have to care about steaks.
Nope.
Maybe you're a vegetarian. I don't know. Maybe not. You don't necessarily have to care about wearing ties. You probably don't have to wear ties after work or something like that. But I think at the core, people do care about a good experience. And that's where we're lacking in the training department. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. And when you think about experience too, is the training and the caring is like you said, maybe I'm like, I don't I don't care if you buy a steak, a ribeye, a filet of New York, right? But what they care about is, are they good at their job? Does it make them more money, right? You can find a reason to care, right? There's all kinds of different reasons. Did you give it to them? Did you show them how to build that, right? Did you show them the experience? And then the funny part about that, about experience in the auto industry, is like when you treat someone as replaceable, that's how they work, right? And so then it's like, you're like, hey, we need to take care of these customers. Why isn't that returned to your employees? Right. And so when you look at it, is what do you do for your employees that would make them pass that on to your customers to make them lifers?
Of course.
And so I think it's part of the conversation. I do things very at this point, I would say they're unorthodox, because we've went away from doing things that are anything different than the remedial. But do you ask them, like, what's going on? How's their family? Do you know their kids' names? Do you know that, like, do you take the time with your employees, which then teaches them or shows them, right? Either way, what they should be doing with their customers. So there's that extra level of care. And this is where you can tell. And this is a challenge to all operators, right? I won't even charge you for this lesson, which I should charge everybody watching this $10,000 for what I'm about to say, because that's how much it's going to make you in the first month. Go look at all your people's social media fields. And don't do it like a corporation where you're trying to police them. That's ridiculous. Go look at them and see if it actually says what they do. And if it doesn't, that's a reflection of you.
That is really a great point and really well said, right? One thing I just kind of wanted to, and I mean, you love finding rabbit holes, and we're going to go down a bunch during this podcast, guys. So just be ready for it. All right. But I do want to highlight one of the things that Darrell said real quick. All right. For everybody out there watching and listening right there. All right. Finding people that care about the experience, any experience. Actually, doesn't even matter. Like, it doesn't matter. In fact, actually, that should be a part of your interview process. All right. Tell me about an experience that was great, and then tell me about an experience that wasn't so great, right? Like,
what's the difference between those two?
Exactly. See if they can actually understand the difference between those and articulate the two of those things, right? Because, regardless if it's a car or a steak or a tie, all right, you got to find the people that ultimately care about the experience. Now, let's take it kind of one step further. Again, we're talking about trying to fix inconsistent customer experience across departments, right? And we know that, having people that, let's say we do step one, we got people, all right, that care about the experience. To your point, we have to train on that. Okay. But let's say step one, we just get them at least caring about experiences in general. They care about them, right? Let's talk a little bit about the process, because then this is a rabbit hole that I think people can almost get stuck in, right? You have some thoughts and some great tips on how we can effectively process our way out of inconsistent customer experience.
Yeah. So when you ask me this about process, now I'm I have issues like process for me. Like I live in it. I mean, so whether it's military, when I was in marching band and everything else, it was just, there were certain things, right? And I do believe, though I do not like him as a coach because he beat us, because I'm an Eagles fan and he's a Patriots coach, but Bill Belichick's do your job. Like, there's certain, if everyone does this, which is very military-ish, is like, then you know what's going to happen. You can do this. But I think where process becomes a problem, and you can talk to people that says, write it down, make it on a drive file so everyone can access it. And I agree with all these things. These are all great. It still doesn't cure the main cause. Is your process too complicated? Is your process too many steps? Like when I walk into stores, and you definitely know this because we've been in the business for roughly the same amount of time, for a couple of decades here, and it's the 10 steps to a sale. 10 steps? Are you kidding me? Like, you can do the sale in 5 steps,
right?
So I came up with, I didn't come up with it. I just said, look, we're going to create processes. We're never going to have how to sell a car. It's never going to be more than 5 steps. 5. And buying a car, 5 steps. Now, this step could have 1 or 2 things off of it that you need to remember, but the step itself is executed in one fail. So, and the reason I did that is, what did we like when we learned how to count? How did we learn how to count?
Mm-hmm.
We learned how to count with our fingers, right?
1, 2, 3, 4, yes.
4, 5. Now, what happens with anything in life when we have to go above what we see in front of our face? We have to change our visual, right? We have to take our eyes off of this, and we have to move over here. So if I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I go here, 6, I now had to take my eyes off of this to move over here. I've now diverted focus. You got to keep your process simple enough to understand that you could tell a 5-year-old this, and it's got to always be 5 steps or less, because we're trying to overcomplicate things. And I just heard this from somebody, and it also goes to pay plans, right? This is indicative of everything we see flawed in the store when it comes to driving loyalty and experience.
Yes.
Pay plans, when you can't do them with a quick pencil and piece of paper and you have to get a calculator out, they're too complicated. If a customer, you say, here's how our process is. We have you come in, we drive the car, we write up the car, we do your trade, and you go and finance, right? Like something simple, and you make it that simple. People are like, whoa. And then do what you say, right? Like they follow the steps. But when you go like this, oh, well, we have to do this, and then we have to do that, and then we have to do this, and we have to do that. What customer in way of an experience is going like this? Man, when you tell me there's 10 steps to the sale, then you have to do this, then you have to do that. And you keep rattling these things off. You're going like this. This is going to take forever.
Well, that's why you're in a dealership for 4.5 hours when you buy a car, because, but to your point, like there's not only just like, let's call it 10 steps to the sale. Well, then there's another 10 for the F&I. And then you need to hand them over to the service department. Service department's got another at least 6 or 7 so they can get you booked in for your first service appointment and everything else. And then God forbid you introduce them to any additional accessories. And there's a whole process that goes along with that. Dude, why do you think it takes, why people are in dealerships for 3 to 4 plus hours at a time? Is because we're not looking at a simple, to your point, 5-step process across the departments. All right. And I love the fact that you brought up this visual. This is so good for everybody out there watching and listening. Maybe because you're listening, you're not watching. All right. But put your hand out in front of you and just count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on your fingers. Okay. That's the visual, right? You're seeing it in front of you. And to Darrell's point, if you got to go beyond that, now you got to look somewhere else, right? So if you're looking to get yourself out of an inconsistent customer experience, simplify that, all right, to a simpler process. Sorry, Darrell, go ahead, keep going. But
and like when we're thinking loyalty, right? And guys, there's every analogy in the world. Now I'm going to talk about one thing that is 10 steps, right? Or 10 things, but I'm going to bring that back to the simplification, but like blocking and tackling in football, right? I'm even going to give an homage to good old John Wooden, right? If you guys don't know who John Wooden is, arguably the best basketball coach ever to live, UCLA, and he started every practice, every season with the same exact lesson. And if you guys don't know what it is that he would show everyone how to tie their shoes. Because whether you're a star or not, everyone puts their shoes on the same way.
I love it.
Everyone ties their shoes the same way. But if you didn't do that right, it's like showing up on time. If you don't show up on time, how can you possibly do anything else right? Showing up time is the easiest thing you could possibly do for a job.
Dude, I remember my first manager, or one of my first no, it was my first manager. All right. I thought this guy was a total dick, like a full on, just total a-hole, right? Every single morning, he had you show up and verbatim execute the meet and greet. And if you couldn't execute it, you got sent home. Like it was,
I love this
school or something like this, right? Dude, for years, I thought this guy was just a total prick. I guess years gone by, and I realized just how insanely effective and good it is for the brain to have to execute on a simple 5-step process of executing that meet and greet, right? Because it literally set, and it was consistent. It was wild. Every single customer got greeted the exact same way, no matter what. It was embedded into you. In fact, if it wasn't, you got sent home.
But I think that's part of the care factor, right, of driving loyalty. He did that, which now the execution of how he did it, maybe we could soften some edges, right? But back in those days, there was no real soft edges. This was like walking on razor blades, right?
Yep.
Is if you didn't come in and put yourself into game mode right from go, then what were you doing? What shortcuts were you cutting when you were in game mode, right? So it starts that process, right? Yep. Now, there is something out there for all of you guys that are of, we'll call it God-fearing or religious people. You have the 10 commandments. There's 10 things.
There you go.
That are out there. And whether you believe in them or not, there's 10 things. So that's more than 5, right? So that would destroy my whole philosophy, except now go read them. They're all one sentence. There's no like indicative, like, oh, I got to read I got this sentence, but I have to dive deep. No, it is, thou shalt not kill. Okay, guys, these are all super simple. Why? Because if we're going to have more than 5, they better be clear as mud, right? Or clear as sky, right? And so when you think about it, is what would happen? You want to drive more loyalty? You want to drive the experience? Here's a challenge. I know no one will take it, but look, let's put out challenges anyway, because let's see if someone actually wants to step up and actually show it can be done. Create 5 rules, a mission statement, 5 rules, customer things, like 5 things customers can count on, 5 things you'll do every time, like things that you know you will hold your store accountable to every time.
Like that.
If you can't come up with 5, come up with 3. It's got to be at least 3, but let's go for 5. But this is what I want you to do, right? Every store out there, I want you to create a 10 commandments, right? I want you to create a scroll, right? And I want you to hang that in your showroom big enough where every customer can see it. And I want you to say, these are the 3 things or the 5 things we'll do. And then demand your people are held accountable to just these 3 or 5 simple things. And see what happens when you take 3, 4, or 5 very simple philosophies or statements like, thou shalt not kill, right? Every customer will be greeted, right? Something very similar, right? Like Walmart, they hire someone that's retired that just sits on the stool and says hi to everyone that comes in. And that's how they boosted their customer satisfaction score by over 30%.
There you go.
Just by greeting them, right? And do 5 things and then find out very quickly, maybe put a GoPro in your showroom, right? And find out very quickly how many times you're actually not doing what you think you're doing, right? Because that's where the phrase comes. There's the store you run, and then there's the store you actually run. Well, and so when you want loyalty and you want that experience, do you demand it? Do you show it? More importantly, do your people even know what loyalty or experience is supposed to look like?
Well, Darrell, do they know that's the objective? Right.
Well,
the thing about that
that could be the first. That could be the first conversation. Do they know that we're actually going after experience and loyalty? But even if they didn't, right? Again, I think a lot of people don't do this, and I take it back to like software tools. I love software tools, and I say that so facetiously because there's I think like 8,000 of them out there. But I do remember way back in the day, and it's the only update they ever did. But I remember when Vin Solutions updated their CRM, it was archaic, and then they updated it, and it was a pretty big update at that given time. I want to say like 2011, 2010. Mm-hmm. And what was funny about it is it put a magnifying glass on everything you did. It told you how quick you made your phone calls. It told you like, and the manager could just look and see you made 30 phone calls in 1 minute. And it was like this big once you put a magnifying glass on it and you can measure it, you had to manage it. Well, that's, I think, what it started. Not saying Vin Solutions, but in that time frame, when we started putting these measurement tools, we never taught dealers how to manage them. And then to measure, once we measured them, we didn't teach them how to manage them and manage the people. And that's where loyalty and experience started going down because we didn't start demanding, if we know this, we need to do this. And I'm going to give an homage to my guy, Glenn Lundy. Okay. He is one of the best in the business. And he's the only person that I've seen reference what I'm about to say on a video, other than the person who actually came up with it. But if you've never seen this, you guys go read this. It is something that actually changed everything about how I looked at business, which is the law of the lid. Yes. And if you've never read the law of the lid, it talks about fleas and putting a lid, and there's a whole thing on it. And if we had a visual, we would do it. But Glenn Lundy has a video out there. He actually shows it. Someone did it for him and shows it. But if you're a 6 as a manager, a 7 in an area, whatever, experience, loyalty, process, your people can only ever be a 5. You have to, like, if you want your people to be 9s, you've got to get to a 10. You have to raise your lid so that your people can jump and they can get up to you. And if you don't do that, you're suppressing your people, which means you express you're exhausting your loyalty, you're exhausting your experience. And then you're basically exhausting your growth, right? Like you have no ability to grow higher because you only see here. So you'll hear this a lot of times when people say, let's say they sell 100 cars a month. And they're like, we want to get to 400. I typically will tell someone, you can't do it. It's impossible. Improbable sometimes, but not impossible. You want to get to 400, you better find somebody in your store that knows what 400 looks like or gets the training on how to get to 400. Because if you have all these guys here that know what 100 looks like and you don't bring someone in fresh, no one knows what that looks like. So everyone's going to say it can't be done.
See, I like the rabbit hole you're going because you're right. Leadership. There's one thing when we're guys, we're talking about inconsistent customer experience across departments, how that affects loyalty, right? It is one thing for us to find the people that do care, right? Again, we have to train them. Sure. It's another thing for us to craft a process so that our people can execute a process consistency, yet creating an experience. And, lastly, and we're going to get into it a little bit. You talked about the technology, but I want to just talk about the leadership aspect of it. You're right. If we don't have a leader all right, that is willing to take a piece of technology. Like I love the fact that you brought up the CRM, right? Because again, technology, look, the tools only as good as how well someone uses it, right? And every single piece of technology that's in our dealership should be there to benefit both our people and the process and their ability to consistently execute the process that creates the experience. I know that's a mouthful, but I think you guys can follow with me on that one. So I am with you 100%. You have to have leadership. But I did want to go back real quick because I love flying around. But I want to go back to the technology part because I think I am seeing right now this in our industry in a huge way. There are so many widgets, there are so many easy buttons, all right, that are promising, we'll just do it for you so you don't have to do it. And I'm kind of getting disgusted with them because, Darrell, we've talked about this before, right? Like the technology should be there to support the efficiency of the process and help the team execute on that. But anyways, go ahead. You have some thoughts on this as well. And I want you to share those.
Yeah. So, I mean, well, with technology, like you said, whether it's AI or tools, and it'll do for you is keep in mind, guys, and you guys can follow the research yourself. If it's AI, 85% of the products that are out there are machine learning AI, which is what we've had since 1986. It's what banks have used and everything else. So, what one person said, shout out to Jackie Giamara, is she went to a Google conference and they were saying like, yeah, the AI that's being packaged up by most people is kale, right? You remember when kale was discussed and then they all of a sudden repackaged and said kale's super healthy for you? That's what AI is. But I'm not anti-AI. I think there's some good ones. I think there's some ones that are definitely wolves in sheep's clothing, but it's a tool.
Right. And look, we've seen this happen real quick, just because I know I want to get down this, but for everybody listening, guys, this isn't the first time we've seen tools jump into our industry like this, right?
Yeah.
All right. We saw the introduction of, websites. We saw the introduction of CRMs. We saw the introduction of trade tools. We saw the introduction of digital retail. Like, there are tools for years in our industry. There are tools that are promising is going to just sell more cars for us. But anyways, go ahead. I know AI is the current one right now, but
and AI is the current one. But even in old tools, CRMs, whatever it is what's your training and support, right? And I really live in the training and support world because I truly believe, much like the great coaches and the, any type of thing that has been very successful is if you don't have time to train, you don't have time to sell, right? And the training comes into confidence.
Mm-hmm.
Training and developing develops confidence, develops routine, develops consistency. And consistency is only boring until it works. Then it's super exciting. And when I think about loyalty, it follows those same parameters. Is loyal or consistency, right? We're like, we're doing the same thing over and over and over again. You're like, oh, it's so mundane until it works. And that's what loyalty is. It's boring, right? We're just consistent. We're not doing any of these weird flares. Like if you saw some of the stores back in the day, like King of Cars and everything else, we're not ringing gongs and we're not, dressing up like blue genies, or we're not doing all these crazy things, which were entertaining. I'm not going to take nothing away from it. It was super entertaining. Is you're consistent, and then all of a sudden you're like, wow, people come back, and then people come back, and become like, wow, maybe we should just be consistent. But that starts to train developing. So when you get the right tools, we can't have that methodology of the tool's going to do it for us. A tool can make someone, and it's the good to great, great by choice. It's the, if you're okay at something and you get a good tool, it can make you good.
Yes.
Right. If you get a shitty tool, it can make you worse. So then if you're a good salesperson, a good acquisition, a good service person, and you get a good tool, it could make you great, right? Because it enhances what you do. But if you get one that's not so good, it could take a great person and actually lower their productivity based on how the tool works or incorporates to your business plan. So I always just caution people, like, what's the training and support? And if there isn't any, they say, well, we turn on the tool, you guys just do what you want to do. I would caution you, because the ones that are a little bit maybe more expensive, or they're a little bit more this, if they come with training support with masters in the business, let's say I told you to get a acquisition tool, but by doing this, you have access to me. So instead of hiring me as a consultant, right, and getting customization and everything else, you would at least get access and be able to ask me questions from time to time. Are you better served by having that help and support when you need it so you can be confident in your tool? Or do you get a tool and say, I'll just figure it out and hope you figure it out? So when I look at that, is the tools can really kill loyalty and can experience if you don't realize they're a tool, and you have to get like ninja level on these things. Like you have to be so confident to where the tool doesn't slow you down.
Well, it not only slows you down, it's going to add to it. if you have to create another process, that
Sure.
to me is because, right, we've talked about this, right? Loyalty comes from people that care about the experience. Loyalty comes from a clean, consistent process. And then you go get a piece of technology. I'm going to pick on digital retailing for a moment. All right, like digital retailing, and you have to create a whole new process. Now, there are some other product digital retail. It's like I think anybody out there that's shopping for a piece of technology should sure first have their process mapped out and then work back towards the technology that's going to help them execute that process more consistently or at a higher level. Right there, we were talking about this earlier when we first jumped on here. Right, remember the old stickers that said on the phone, "Pick me up, I make you money." The phone was just a tool. All right, but I know, I knew some women, I knew some guys that, man, they had this unnatural ability to pick up that tool and use it in a way that made them a small fortune. And I don't necessarily say so. So I'm like, I look at kind of today's tools, and I think anybody out there, that's looking for some, just how do I make my team more consistent? Maybe it's consistent in the way they communicate, or the frequency they communicate, or more consistent in the way that they present trade appraisals, right? Consistency, right? That's what we're all coming back to. Anyways, go ahead,
And,
Joel.
and so, in driven loyalty, and I'll wrap up this last point and let you kind of ask questions from there, is when you're also looking at tools, this is the big one, guys. And what I'm about to say, I know no chance you guys will listen to this and it'll fall on deaf ears, but I just want to say it so no one can say, like, I never heard that. I never knew that. I'm going to take the excuses away from you right now. When you're looking at new tools, it can't be to make your job easier. Can't be. If you're trying to make your job easier, you will get lazy. You will shortcut. You have to look at tools of what increases the betterment, the experience, whatever name or whatever verbiage you want to put in, is going to make it more palatable, easier to engage, easier to understand for the consumer. So, for instance, I'll use one tool because I'm sure that the other tools will come out and they'll be better. But I'm a big fan of like AccuTrade for acquisition, not because it's, let's say, the best data or this or that, not for any of the, like, we'll call it technical pieces. When I saw it and I saw what they did, and first it was the only tool that you could put an OBD reader and the walk around, and it was all integrated into one. No other tool had that.
Yep.
So I was like, well, that's great, because guess what? That's better for my experience, because now I don't have to sit there and do 3 different systems to get this and then put it all together. But the real reason is their presentation sheet and color, and then everything being presented in one, so I don't have to piecemeal sheets together, was a much better experience for the consumer.
Yes, there we go.
Out there, and this is why. And I want you guys to think about this. So we're clear, so everyone knows. No, I do not work for AccuTrade. I do not get paid by AccuTrade. I understand what it is about a consumer experience. Is when you present that, and if you use like my walk around that I've built that is world class and everything else, is you do certain pieces and use the technology now for the consumer. I'm no longer telling them anything. I'm presenting the facts. There's no feelings. There's no opinions. This is what we did together. We put it in the system, and now they get an array of options to where they can make an educated decision. We are not boilerplating people. We're not like, take it or leave it. We are saying, look, guys, we want to give you all the information because we want you to feel good about the experience and the decision that you're going to make. And if you don't, then you prompt, depending on your presentation and how you do it and everything else, is if there's questions or you want to negotiate, if you're one of those type of stores, then you can go down that road. But if you just go, for instance, we'll use the big box store, right? The old blue and yellow monster, right? That's out there for the cars. They have a great process. Anyone that says they don't, you obviously have not been there lately. Their process is slow now because they're so busy. But where they only buy like 30% of the cars that come into their store. Think about that. All the cars that CarMax appraises, they only buy 30%. And it's because they still have an antiquated take it or leave it offer method, which tells me 70% of people don't like that. They don't want to see one number. They don't want to say take it or leave it. So when you think about the tool, you have to go like, how do we engage, or how does it help our people help
the tool or the process? I'm following you here. Yep.
But how does the consumer, when they do it, they go, wow, okay. It immediately dispels the perception they have about the auto industry, because it makes it easier for them, or it makes it a better experience or easier to understand. So they don't feel like they're confused or they don't know what's going on or whatever it may be. And I think that's where dealers have really missed a gap. I want technology to make it easier for my job.
Yes, there we go.
How do I make it better for my experience? Or what makes the experience better for the consumer first? Not saying that it doesn't need to be easier, but consumers have to come first.
No, look, I am so with you on this because, if the process or the technology is not at the benefit of the consumer, then you might as well just throw out the objective of loyalty because it just won't happen, right? And going back, and it's sure in the hell won't create a great experience in any way or form, right? Like, but you're right, we do this. We see this all the time. I go to dealerships' websites. I go to a vehicle landing page. I see 13 call to actions. Tell me that all 13 of those are there because it's supposed to make me, the consumer's job, easier. No, not at all. Because if you really want to make, me, the consumer, my experience better, you'd put one. Have a conversation.
You say that because I'm sure you can just wrap something into like DR. I've never seen a tool that was professed to be easier for a consumer that has now made the experience tougher for the consumer.
Well, again, it comes down to the process, right? And and just as much as you love actually, the same reason I love Podium, right? Is because I have seen how the product creates and execute consistent conversation, and I love conversation, right? I mean, as a dealer, over a decade ago, I stopped tracking how many leads I had coming into my dealership, and I started tracking how many conversations we were having, right? Because as a leader, as a dealer, all right, I knew that I could take conversations and turn them into opportunities. But if I wasn't measuring that, I was measuring something else, then I wouldn't be able to get. Anyway, look, I digress, guys. I know we're getting towards the tail end of our conversation. And you know how much you can see me and Darrell love talking about loyalty, and we love talking about it, from the perspective of people and process and technology, because it really is, right? Like, guys, we've decided to kind of have today's conversation around inconsistent customer experience across departments. All right, that does affect loyalty in a big way when you're inconsistent. For everyone out there watching and listening, you have to sit down, write on a piece of paper, to Darrell's point, look at yourself in the mirror, and just really say, look, do I got the people? Do I have the process? Do I have the technology that helps me execute, all right, a consistent customer experience? Because that consistent customer experience will drive your loyalty. It's the same reason I keep going back to the Cake Steakhouse. Same reason why Darrell will buy his ties in Nordstrom. Hey, Darrell, right? Any final thoughts, Darrell, before we let the audience go?
No, sir. I appreciate you having me on. And guys, I'm sure there'll be more coming in this because there's so many different ways you can increase loyalty and consistency in your business to where you don't have to spend as much to get that return when you do it at the core foundation.
Hey, real quick, for everybody out there watching and listening right now who would love to connect with you and maybe continue having some parts of this conversation, Darrell, what's the best way to do so?
You can contact me, social media. You can Darrell Steed or Smart Wolf Consulting. You'll look for this logo in the background you see. LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, or you can go to website smartwolfconsulting.com and you can drop a form. My number is public. You can find my number, email, and it's one of those things where you want to get better and you want to make it simple to where it's like, it's not one of those things hard to measure when you simplify it. Let's have a conversation because it's about getting better, getting consistent, getting more, right? Yes. It's all about winning.
100%. Hey, for everybody out there watching and listening, we appreciate you. One of the biggest compliments you can ever give us as content creators is to share the show. That means so much to us. If you have a colleague or a manager or a friend that needs to see some part of today's conversation, share the show. You're a total hero. Thank you for everyone for your time. You guys have an amazing day.
Thanks for tuning in to the Driven Loyalty Podcast. Don't forget to like, comment, and share. Happy podcasting.